Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 2 of the Cheap Celestron C925 video. We're going to do a bit of a comparison, talk about a few issues that I had, things like that. I'm going to compare it to the C8 and we'll go from there. Since the last video, the channel's hit over 100 subscribers. I think it's up to about 140, 150 now, so that might not seem like a lot, but I reckon that's absolutely fantastic, so thanks very much. Yeah, so we'll get into it. Watch the video, let me know what you think in the comments, and enjoy. So comparatively, the Celestron C8, we'll start with that. It has a focal length of 2032 millimeters, aperture of 203.2, which gives it an f10 ratio. The tube weight is 5 kilos and a resolution of around 0.57 arc seconds. The C925 is focal length of 2350, aperture of 235. It's still an f10, but the tube weight is 9.07 kilos and the resolution is 0.49 arc seconds. As you can see, both of these were a steal. So the C8 I paid 500 for, and the C9 I paid even less at 300. Okay, so after I cleaned the corrector plate on the C925, here I am. I'm basically going to jerry rig a fake star so I can get a rough collimation. LED torch, piece of foil, a nappy pin, and I pinched a hair tie from my daughter to keep it all in place. So basically take your light, wrap the foil over the top, use a rubber band or a hair tie to stop it from falling off and moving, and then take the nappy pin and just poke a single hole into it so that once you turn the light on, it replicates a false star. Then all I did was hang the torch on top of a camera tripod, place it as far away in the house as I possibly could, point the scope at it, and work on collimation. It did take a little bit of stuffing around. Obviously the scope's not mounted, so it's not as easy as using the hand controller to slew it around and point it at the star. It was sort of me walking backwards and forwards and adjusting the tripod and changing the way it was pointing. But once I got it in the screen, it was relatively easy to get it collimated, because I'm sitting, obviously you can see I'll sit in front of the laptop and using, this thing's got the Bob's knobs on the secondary mirror, which makes it handy as, because it means not using a screwdriver. Obviously I played around a little bit with the focus at the back. Now, when we get later into the video, you'll see this is mistake number 1. So I got it fairly well collimated. Then by the time I took it outside, it all went to shit. And you'll see why. Simple mistake. And actually the first video, someone did leave me a comment and say you should do this. And we'll go into that a bit later. So just micro adjustments on the knob to get the central obstruction in the middle of the donut. They are fairly sensitive, so it looks like I'm doing massive turns, but I'm really not. I'm barely like a 16th of a turn, if lucky. But yeah, once I got it consecutively in the middle, you'll see the collimation. I put the reticle from Sharp Cap over the top of it just to see. It's not perfect, but it's close enough. So it's looking pretty good. Well, I think it is. In saying that, I just hit 40, so my eyesight's probably gone to shit. But what I didn't really notice, when I refocused here, to my eye it looked okay, but it's actually not that sharp when you take a closer look at it. Here's the reticle from Sharp Cap over the top, so as you can see, it's pretty good. Like, now that I look back at it, it may not be perfect, but it's close enough for all intensive purposes. So I thought I'll take both the scopes, the C8 and the C925 outside and give them a daylight test on the moon. Now this was in the afternoon, it was a 35°C day, so there's a lot of turbulence. But here I am. Now the HEQ5 mount was set up from the previous night. I had a small refractor on it, so it is polar aligned, etc. Obviously that might change slightly putting the bigger scopes on, but in theory it should still be fairly well aligned. Okay, so we'll slew it and point it at the moon. Like I said, the C8's tried and tested and I don't really have any issues with it at all. It holds collimation really well. It doesn't tend to move or slop around or anything like that. So here's an example pointing it at the moon. Now this is with the 505 planetary camera from SV Bonnie. It wasn't quite like the mounts, I didn't do an alignment or anything, I'm just manually pointing it. So I still did have to sort of search and hunt around for the moon a little bit, but once it got in, like I said, the mount's pretty well polar aligned, so it did track fairly well. So you can just see it when I raise the exposure. It's just on the edge of the screen there, so I'm just using the hand controller to slew around and get it into the screen so we can work on the focus a little bit. But the C8, like I said, I love the C8 when it's pointed at the moon and things like that. It's this thing's got an autofocuser on it, and it doesn't tend to have any mirror flop or anything like that. So you just play around with the autofocus and all of a sudden it just snaps into place and it looks nice and sharp and crispy. It's still a little bit overexposed, but I'll deal with that in a second after I get the focus dialed in. You can see some really good detail. Turn the exposure down. And then adjust the colours. There we go, just so that the moon's not projecting that yellow hue or yellow greeny hue. Probably still a little bit overexposed there for the bright side of the moon, but I'll sort that out. Yeah, there we go, back to like a more natural colour. Like, it's fairly detailed, it looks good. Nice sharp details on the craters and things like that. Now this is at the standard focal length of the C8, which is 2032mm with this SV 505 planetary camera. While the C8's still on the mount, it was just on starting to get dark. So I thought we might as well point it at Saturn because it was basically right beside the moon. So here's the 505 at native focal length on the C8. The seeing was average at best, and being at native focal length, I could have used a Barlow and things like that, but I just wanted to give a sort of apples to apples native focal length comparison of the C8 to the C925. So here's the standard 2032mm focal length, and then up here I'm just about to crop it into 640 by 480 to give a sort of more cropped in view. You can see a little bit more detail. I didn't spend too much time stuffing around with the C8. It was more just to give a rough comparison to when I put the C925 onto the mount. That's what you guys seemed to ask for in the last video. You want to see them side by side. So here it is in all its glory, the C8. And like I said, the seeing's average. It performs a lot better with Barlows and different cameras and things like that on it, better seeing conditions. Middle of summertime here in Australia, we always get shitty turbulent air because it's 40 degrees through the day and then it drops overnight. Here's the 505 at its full 4.2 megapixel resolution, and then here it is again cropped into 640 by 480 pixels. Okay, now into the C925 in all its glory. After I've disassembled it, cleaned the corrector plate, cleaned all the crap off the inside of the corrector plate, put it back together, and I was expecting amazing results with this thing. Now this is where mistake number one comes in. As you can see here, I've got a series of tubes set up to give me 139mm of back focus with the camera. That was the first issue. So this thing was fairly well collimated, or so I thought. And then when I took it outside, obviously the previous owners played around with the mirror, and I'm guessing the baffle tube which controls the mirror off the focuser might have a bit of slop and play in it. So the biggest mistake I made was, after collimating it inside, was playing around with the focuser on the actual SCT. You'll see here, once I get it pinpointed onto the moon and try and play around with the focus, the image is extremely soft. There's no sharp details in the craters. It almost looks blurry. There's ghosting happening. Like, it appears that there's 2 and 3 of the same image on the screen, and it just looks really, really ordinary. So it took me 2 days, and I played around. I thought maybe I hadn't cleaned the optics, maybe I'd misaligned the corrector plate, maybe the primary mirror wasn't good. Here is Saturn, and it just looks like a blurred mess. It's almost like it's flaring, and the same thing, it's ghosting. There's no detail. It didn't matter what I did moving the focuser in tiny increments, I just could not get anything sharp, no detail whatsoever. So come to day 3, and I tried again after I'd read a comment that someone actually put on the first video, and I should have known better. The C8, I've done the same thing. It's got an autofocuser, but I've put a Crayford focuser on the back of it. So once you get in rough focus on the actual SCT mirror and get it collimated, the secondary Crayford on the back of it stops you actually having to touch the focuser, which means the mirror won't flop. You don't move the mirror, you don't adjust it. So here it is in all its glory with the secondary focuser on the back, and as you can see, the craters, they're just crisp and sharp. They look so much better than the previous day where it was just a blurred mess, and I was pulling my hair out, and I just couldn't understand. I felt like I tried everything. I went through everything from back focus to running it with a reducer. Had I done something to the optics? Had I misaligned the mirrors in some way that I don't know, but was it the ambient temperature outside to the hot and cold inside the tube and outside the tube? Did I not let it cool down enough? Either way, I was pulling my hair out, and all it was a simple fix of don't touch the friggin' focuser that's on the SCT. And here you can see this is Saturn. Like, at its native focal length of 2350, still not super detailed, but there is detail there compared to the previous day where it was just an orange blurry blob in the middle of the screen. So eventually, like, I honestly thought after the first day, I've just bought a piece of shit for $300 and this thing needs to either go in the bin or someone can just have it and take it for parts. But second day, sat down, cooler heads prevailed, and I went through everything I thought that could possibly be wrong with it and finally found a simple solution to it. So here's the same thing, sat and cropped in at 640 by 480, and there is a fair bit of detail on it. Like I said, compared to the previous day where it was literally a blurry blob that was moving around the screen and had wisps and ghosting and you couldn't actually see anything. It just looked like a misaligned star. And then I did take a small capture with this towards the end of this little sharp cap vid here. I did play around with the gain and the exposure to try and highlight the rings a bit more and actually bring up the moons, just to see sort of what this thing was actually capable of. And I imagine on a decent night of seeing with the 432 mono sensor and filters and like a 4 times Barlow or a 4 times power meet, this thing is going to be able to get unbelievable detail on the planets. And then just for a final test, while it was all set up and running, I thought I might as well point it at an actual deep sky object. So I changed the camera over to the SV405 cooled Astro camera and pointed it straight at the Orion Nebula, which is rising over the trees in my backyard. It's at the moment it's up at about 8 o'clock, but it's not dark till about 8:30, and then it sort of follows the tree line, so it's in a bit of a shit of a spot, but you do get just the edge of it with a few bits and pieces like right in the way. Anyway, here's the live stack coming up in sharp cap, where I basically just ran the 405 camera, not cooled. I didn't have power plugged into it. I was just running the camera like a standard planetary camera. And like I said, here you can see just in the middle the Orion's rising, and it basically follows that tree line, and you can see the amount of illumination on the fence from the dickhead neighbour next door that's got a floodlight. So here's the sharp cap stack, and I think I did about 5 or 6 minutes worth, but yeah, it's pretty good for what it is. You can see as it sort of starts to stack, my polar alignment's not fantastic and the mount isn't actually aligned, so it doesn't really know where it is, so it does start to jump around almost like an alt as mount. It starts to, like you can see to the right hand side of the picture there, it's got a dark part in the image where it's tried to stack and there's misalignment, but it doesn't do too bad. So here's the final image. I just ran it through PixInsight, did some noise reduction, things like that. And here's the final vids of the moon with the C925. That's at its native focal length of 2350, and then this is the same at 2350 with a 2 times Barlow on top of it. And then obviously, so the only difference between this and the C8, I did put a diagonal on this, but there it is with the 405 camera on the back. And yeah, here's the moon with the 405. I just wanted to get like a wider field of view just to see how detailed it actually is, and to be honest, it looks pretty good. So I think all in all, this C925 that I bought for $300 was an absolute bargain, and as long as you don't touch the actual mechanical focuser on the back of the SCT, this thing is going to be fantastic. So yeah, you know the drill, guys. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments, and yeah, like, share, subscribe, do that sort of thing, and I'll see you again next time.